you heard of Clublog? I'm sure you have, but just in case you haven't, we've got the man who created it here, Michael Wells, G7VJR. Good to see you, Michael. Firstly, for anybody who hasn't seen it and heard of it, what is Clublog?
Hi David, nice to see you again. Clublog is a website for storing amateur radio contacts. So you can think of it as a database, and basically if you make a contact, you store your records in it and upload them to it regularly. And at the moment we have about 1 billion QSOs.
1 billion?
Wow. Yeah, just as of this year, that's the big milestone for us. That is a lot of data, really a lot of data.
And you've got to store that, continually store it. Wow.
Yeah, so we have it all in one place, which is the power of the system really, because then you can analyse it for propagation studies or produce reports that help people understand how amateur radio is used. It's mostly for HF and DXing. That's the sort of focus of it. It does also work with satellites.
Is it for contesters as well?
Yeah. Anything on HF that involves making contacts, you'll likely find a use for it. And there's about 100,000 users worldwide. So it's quite a busy system.
So it's not just for the UK, it's a worldwide.
Worldwide.
And does it cost anything?
No, it's free.
So, okay, I mean, just interested, how do you carry something like that with just that much data, 1 billion contacts stored? How do you fund something like that if it's free?
It's funded by donations. So if you use it and you like it, then you can donate to pay for it. But you don't have to. And it doesn't unlock any new features if you do. It's literally a faith system of, we need to pay for this. If you enjoy using it, just pay what you can.
And it does cover itself that way? That's really good. So
hosting and hardware costs are covered from that, and some of the big foundations have donated towards it as well.
And it shows people really do value it as well, if they're funding it as well. Yeah. So how would I get onto it? Would I sign up? You said it's called Clublog, so do I have to be in a club to join it? Or
no, the reason it's called Clublog is because one of its features is about joining a group of users that is your club, and it can build league tables of club v club, where you all sort of build up it's almost competitive basically. So the Clublog idea was originally that, but it does a lot more than that now. And as for signing up, it's on the web, it's just clublog.org. Clublog is one word, .org, and there's a button there to sign up and get yourself connected in.
Well, okay, so that's for anybody who's never used it or heard of it.
Yep.
New developments?
Oh, there's always things going on.
That you can tell us about?
Yeah, there's a very interesting project we're working on to do with using SDR radios to record the activity on the bands. Mostly we're thinking about during contests at the moment. So if you think about a busy contest weekend like CQ Worldwide, we're recording the entire period of 48 hours, the whole spectrum, all 5 bands. And later, it's about 8 terabytes of data. Later, you'll be able to go back in and replay any part of the contest. So we're trying that at the moment using various technologies and software solutions to try and make it manageable. But there'll be a web-based interface to a radio. And you can imagine there's a dial for frequency, band and mode, but there's also a dial for what time, which is a time machine going backwards. So we're really excited about that. It's already working really well. And
so is that the idea of that for sort of self-improvement then, or to see what bands worked, what didn't work, what antennas worked and what didn't?
I think once you play with it, you realise that it's just incredibly good fun going and listening to your own QSOs. But also it can be used for adjudication. And in future we're thinking maybe it would be used for studying propagation or marginal QSOs in general, because if we've got a general record of everything always, maybe we need more than 8 terabytes, but there's no reason why we couldn't record multiple sites for 40 days, 100 days, if the storage is there. So that's where it's heading. It's quite ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fascinating. So, I mean, do you work with, or do people like the Propagation Studies Committee, do they contact you and use this as a tool as well to understand better propagation?
I think their approach is mostly based around ionospheric science, whereas ours is based around data patterns. So there's 2 approaches and they're complementary. I do know that some of our data does get used that way. I'm really pleased when it does get used, because it's all open, all the data is shared completely freely, with the hope that other people will find uses for it. But yeah, if we start adding, for example, I work in AI professionally, so I'm thinking about building AI models that do propagation predictions on difficult bands like 6 meters or 160, where it's quite hard to find a statistical pattern. There isn't a formula for when propagation will be good on top band, but there's a certain thing that an experienced DXer can tell you about it, which I would like to try and find
model, I
with
guess,
an AI
and
model.
then help others to learn the best way.
Yeah.
I mean, AI, you've used that word. I mean, it is a bit controversial. We've had some bad stuff in it, like everything man's invented. I guess it can be used for bad, but can be used for a lot of good in this.
That's right.
What's the next stage, do you reckon, for AI in this hobby? What other things could it be used for?
I think just generally data crunching is the thing I would reach for first. But other things are possible. Like, for example, for many years we've had a technology called CW, Skimmer, which can hear CW on the bands and decode it, and it's really great for drawing attention to people calling CQ. But there isn't something like that for sideband, and there could be now. So a few years ago I would have said, I just don't think you can do it. And now I would say, I know exactly how you'll do it. And the AI tools are there. So graphics hardware would be needed, but you could train a model to listen to the bands and find stations calling CQ, including the call signs and everything else. So quite exciting, really. A whole new era of computational possibilities for processing signals.
Absolutely, yeah, thanks, fantastic. Thanks very much for joining us, Mike. Again, your website again, for anybody who hasn't signed up and would like to use it?
Yep, it's clublog.org, O-R-G.
Well, now we're going to meet some of the people in this room, which is the committee room, a lot of the committees of the RSGB. The first up is Kathy Clark, who is the chair of RAYNET.
That's correct, yes. Yes, we're actually in the special interest group room, which is just downstairs, and it's lovely to be here. We've never been invited before. I haven't been to the convention for many years, and I cannot believe how much it's grown. It is absolutely phenomenal now. And we are doing a presentation on RAYNET at 70, because it is our 70th anniversary this year, and we are talking not just about the history but also some of the future technological advancements that RAYNET is engaged in.
So what else would you be talking about in your talk?
There's quite a lot on the experimentation that RAYNET has been doing. We have up in Scotland what is called FeedNet, which is a mesh network that covers the Forth Estuary. That was as a direct demand from the local authority, who needed to have reliable communications in case of an outage because of wide-scale flooding down the estuary.
What about those who must say now, and the organisations that used to ask RAYNET to support them, but they said, we've got good mobile phones, we've got a good mobile signal, we don't need something like RAYNET. What do you say to people like that?
You'd be surprised where there are black spots. People believe there is 100% coverage throughout the country, but there are still a lot of areas, forested areas, I'm thinking of Thetford Forest, where there just aren't mobile phone signals. You can't rely on it.
I live about 15 miles from Thetford, so I know exactly what you mean. But I mean, you know, seriously, there's a lot of technology, but everybody can now go out and buy a legal walkie-talkie to use on the, free bands and things like that. So how do you sell RAYNET when we're saying to an organisation, we can provide support? What extra can RAYNET do as well as the communications?
As I said, infrastructure independence is the name of the game. We don't rely on anything else other than us. We provide the kit, we provide the power, we are completely independent, and you'd be surprised the number of people who say, I can't get an email through, or I can't get internet, or I've only got one bar on my phone. So yes, it's not the be all and end all. We all are the support organisation. And if there is a major incident, communications get overloaded, and that's where we are often called in.
And thank you very much for spending the time with us now.
Thank you very much.
Hello there, Steve Thomas again, RSGB General Manager and RSGB Convention Chair, and today I'm joined by two gentlemen in very bright orange shirts, and to be honest, they normally hunt me down at events, so we've turned the tables today and thought we'd have a good chat with the ICQ Podcast team. So, introduce yourselves, because you do it very regularly.
All right, yes, thank you, Steve, for inviting us along today. So, as you say, I'm Colin M6BOY, the founding editor of the ICQ Podcast, and this is obviously my father Martin, M1LB, who is a technical editor of the show.
So a bit of a family business then?
Well, it started as a family thing, but if I'd have realised that you were going to do this a bit earlier, I might have gone out and got even brighter orange shirts just so you don't have to wear your sunglasses.
Yeah. But the great fun is at events we can normally see you coming, and as I see you coming, I'm normally thinking, right, what are we going to tell them? What are the big subjects that I need the ICQ podcast to talk about and things like that? But you've been doing this for some time.
14 years. So 14 years ago, we 14, 15, you're getting merged.
15.
Well, it started from a phone call, and I come across podcasts, and I decided I wanted to do a podcast. And I knew two things in life. I knew about technology and IT, and I knew about football, allegedly. But there was already shows about that, and everyone tells you about work edition and something B. So I phoned up my father, and I said, hey, that amateur radio thing you do, there doesn't seem to be much on that. Don't really know what it's about, but I want to do this podcast. What do you reckon? And being a very supportive father as he is, he says to me, yeah, no problem at all, son. I'll do that for you on one condition. I said, what's that? He says, you've got to get a license.
Oh yeah.
And that started the birth of a show. And we're very open, and we said that, it would do 10 shows, and if no one listens, we'll can it and forget we ever did this.
Yeah.
And that was 414 episodes ago, now.
Yeah.
And it just went from strength to strength from that moment.
So how often do you do the podcast? Is it weekly or bi-weekly?
Guaranteed fortnightly. So we've never missed a release fortnight.
Yeah.
But in the middle of that, we'll also release specials and extras along the way. So as content comes along, that's important. So to get out, if you like, quicker, or to add extra episodes, we will drop extra episodes in rather than delay the content going out. But the biggest thing is the evolution of the podcast. So it started off with the pair of us, really. We were discussing the news, and then we would have a technical feature or some radio training in the early days. And really what happened by accident is I live in Southern Ireland, and my internet connection failed in rural islands. The cows were pointing the wrong way for a few weeks, and we just lost internet connection. And pretty much we came to a crossroad where did we shut the show down because we couldn't produce it anymore, or did we change? And we changed, and we pivoted at that stage, and we opened it up. And we've always said the show is for amateurs, by amateurs, and at that stage we were lucky enough to be introduced to a wonderful team of people that will always forget some, but they're around the world. They're in Germany and America and the UK, etc., and Australia at one stage. And we opened up to a group of people who could come along, exchange ideas, discuss, debate what was going on in the hobby, and really generate thoughts and passion about what people do, and really start the conversation about things. So, we were never aiming to replace the news services of the national organisations with people. What we wanted to do is give people a voice to discuss and debate. About
that group of people are really, really interesting. They gel, and the conversation will go all over the show, won't it, sometimes? But I think that's what amateurs do anyway. When they meet, they talk. So.
In fairness, we've just done a presentation for you in a room down the corridor, and one of the gentlemen told me as well when he came in that he disagreed with me totally and utterly, blah blah blah. And we've just had a discussion, and I shook his hand as he left the room, and I said, you're entitled to your opinion. Yeah, and that's with the presenters. We don't always agree on everything. But the thing is, it's an opinion, somebody's opinion, and you learn from those opinions, and it's not an argument. You never fall out.
No.
We just do it. One of the things, I'm going to jump slightly, one of the questions I get asked 3 or 4 times at every event I go to, so we might as well explain it now. Why did we call it the ICQ Podcast? Well, at the time I didn't know about the ICQ mail system or whatever it is. But at the time when Colin was asking me to do this, he said, I need a domain name now, Dad. No, we can't wait. I need one now. I've got to set it up. Bang, I've got to buy it.
What is available?
What's available? And I racked my brains, and as far as I could think at the time, I'm sure there are much better names, but I thought ICQ, meaning from the Morse stage, I'm seeking you. So I'm seeking you, and then we put podcast after it because what it is.
It still works.
And that's purely how the name came about. Nothing to do with the mail system.
And it stuck.
Well, you're stuck with us anyway, Steve?
But everything we do is that way. I mean, we are pretty much two uneducated people that are lucky enough that we attract clever people to come and talk to us, to not only educate us, but allow us to ask the questions that other people would want to ask, in a way that we're not embarrassed to ask the questions that maybe people are wanting to ask. And that's what triggers off that learning and that development of ideas and what it be, because you're not sitting there going, I can't talk to that person because they're such a phenomenally intelligent person. If I go and ask a really, really dumb question, they're going to think I'm a, someone who uneducated they want to talk to. Just trust me, we got no filter, so we need to go and ask it. You know?
But spreading that word is an important way that you work, isn't it? I know, talking to Martin very often, you were always very keen, new people coming into amateur radio, so that they can hear other people discussing it, or discuss it with you if they're coming on some of their your digital voice channels, etc. But they can hear people talking about it and pick up ideas. And one of the things we're always concerned about is people come into amateur radio, think it's just one small part of it, and actually there's a whole range of things. So if you hear people talking about it and the different things, you've got something else to go and investigate.
Well, the digital voice thing, you talk about a digital voice thing. Yes, we're a podcast, we release fortnightly. Yeah, we've always done that. But the digital voice thing was, we came to the idea, if we're going to bring youngsters into the hobby, they live in a digital world.
Yeah.
They don't live in my analogue world of years ago.
No.
So they're comfortable. If they're comfortable there, then why not help them? And the other problem is, if you buy one of the digital modes, if you've got a D-Star radio, nothing wrong with that.
No.
But if you ain't got a D-Star repeater in your area, you're snookered. So then you end up with a hotspot. But your mate might have bought a Yossi Fusion radio or a DMR radio, and they don't communicate unless you drop back to analogue and have a chat on analogue. So what's the point in having a digital radio?
Yeah.
So the digital voice group the idea was to just have a big bucket effectively where everybody can communicate in. We transcode it all and send it back out in all the different modes.
Yeah.
And that's worked well. It's not the busiest talk group in the world. There's probably about a dozen people a day use it.
Yeah, but do you find, because people have listened to you on the podcast, that when they see you at events like this and they see the orange shirts, they feel like they know you already, so they'll come up and have a chat, and they feel like that on the radio as well.
Yeah,
because
sometimes,
I'm talking to somebody that I know, and if they're just finding their first steps, that's a great help, isn't it?
So I suppose the great change, like, fact is you'll be walking through, say National Ham Festival, and it's in Newark, I know we're missing this year, but there'll be great examples. You'll be waiting to do an interviewer, and all of a sudden you've lost your interviewer because all of a sudden he's been caught by a load of people en route that want to chat and obviously want to engage with a beat, and all of a sudden we're changing around our interviewers because all of a sudden we've lost one because
I understand that problem here.
Yeah. But the biggest thing is, fact, we've always said that we're there for the hobby, and we're there to help promote the hobby, etc. So if we have to change the interviewer just because, to do our interview because one of our presenters has been called by somebody that they love to talk about, or they want to debate something they've spoken about recently on an episode. I heard you talk about this. You bought a new antenna and you think it's really great. Can you tell me about? I got a setup problem. Can you help me with this, or there be? Yeah, all those conversations spring from that, and really do develop from there.
And again, changing steps, because I honestly don't know how long we've got to talk. I'm hoping that David will give me a tug on the shirt.
About 3 hours,
Well, you know how long we can talk, because we often do. But you do this on a volunteer basis, don't you? Really? Let's touch on that sort of thing, because you are giving quite a contribution at this point.
We've always said that the podcast should be free. In fairness, and I'm not going to mention names, very early on we had a manufacturer with an open checkbook saying, I want to sponsor you and I want you to take out my advertising. They then had a little bit of cold feet for whatever reason, and we decided at that point in time that we wouldn't take advertising, because if I tell you this piece of kit is good, it's because I've bought it.
Yep.
Or I've done bits and pieces. Now, occasionally people send us equipment.
Yeah.
And yes, we've been accused a few times of never doing bad reviews, which is not true.
Yeah.
We have done some of equipment we didn't like.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, anybody who sends us anything to review normally make sure it's good before they send it.
Send a good piece of kit. Yeah.
Because our review policy is, if you want it reviewed, you send it to us.
Yeah.
We'll review. You have no control over how we review it.
Yeah.
And you pay to collect it.
Yeah.
Because we don't make any money. We don't charge.
No, absolutely.
So if you want it back, you arrange the collection.
Yeah.
Now what often happens is somebody will say, "Oh, I tell you what, donate it somewhere within the hobby," and we do that. That's fine. There was one gentleman, for the love of me, and I apologise if you ever see this, in Australia, that said to us, "Will you review my book?" And I went, yeah, but you'll have to send us a copy. And he went, "Too expensive for me to send you a copy." He said, "How about I send you the money, you buy it off Amazon and review it?" And we did.
Yeah.
And trust me, it was a really good book. And I reviewed it, and then we donated it into the hobby to an amateur that would make use of it.
Yeah.
And I walked around various shows, and people came up to me and said, "That was a really good book."
Yeah.
And at that point in time, you feel good because people believe you.
Yeah, because they've listened to your review. That's it takes us down an interesting avenue, though. So worldwide reach. So you've got Australian people listening. Have you ever done any sort of analytics of?
So the honest truth answer is no, for a very simple reason.
Yeah.
So again, back to the concept of fact that it's not financially driven.
No.
It breaks down the metrics of reach. And the other thing as well, because we don't need to show advertising reach, and I'll probably get into the nerdy business of podcasting.
Yeah.
Because of that, we just distribute it anywhere and anywhere. So our copyright agreement basically says that you can redistribute our content anywhere, as long as you do it in its entirety.
Yeah.
So you can take the podcast and put it on a repeater in Tasmania. You can put it on a USB stick and give it to everybody in your club.
Yeah.
You can burn it in CDs and give it to grandma's retirement home if you want, right? Don't care what you do with it as long as you go for that. So the honest truth answer is we don't know.
Yeah.
Our belief is it's a figure somewhere in excess of 50,000-60,000 a month, right? Is our belief. But I can't guarantee promise or pay. The biggest thing is the fact is we know people download it, we know we get feedback, we get some very kind donors that help us out by running costs. But most importantly, it's our way of giving back to the hobby. In some way, some people train, some people volunteer, obviously, to do organisations and what it be. This is our way of giving something back. And while we continue to have that passion for the hobby and that desire to give back and really continue to get feedback of what we do, we'll carry on doing it. And as long as we carry on having fun, we'll keep on doing it. And that's the main thing, is to have fun.
I mean, I think the thing is, we were lucky. We got into podcasting in its infancy. In fairness, today, unless you're an A-list celebrity, nobody's going to download your podcast.
It's very difficult to climb up the algorithm, isn't it? In these things,
And we will never be at the level of A-list celebrity, blah blah blah. But we do it for the hobby and to put back into the hobby. But going forward, the podcasters, I mean, we're never going to be rich financially, pound notes or whatever currency you want to use with a hobby. But Steve, I'm extremely rich with the people I've met. I mean, I'm going to drop a few names. How many people have actually met Martin Dew from MFJ? Now, he's a lovely gentleman. When he realised I wasn't going to stiff him for a free product or something, he was over the moon and great and those sort of things. Bob Heil. When I met Bob, he effectively says to his man, here's my phone, I'm just going down here to talk to Martin. It'll look as though I'm selling him something, but I'm going to talk to Martin. And it was like talking to your dad. He wasn't talking down to me.
But those people, although they're in business, they also care very passionate about amateur radio as well.
We've ended up interviewing over the years. People like Lord Horwood, who's Director General of the BBC, was interviewed by guys in orange t-shirts, sort of thing. People like Laurie Margonis, and obviously his fame of the football board breaking the news there. People high up in Icon Japan, that. Probably as standard amateurs we would never have had access to. The amount of access it gives us is great to then ask those questions.
To generate that discussion with those sort of people and get your views. We've got about 2 minutes, I think, so thereabouts. But I just wanted to touch, you're quite involved in the club scene as well, aren't you? I know you're very definitely a club and encourage newcomers in there. Anything you want to put in just in the last sort of minute or so about that sort of, where that passion comes from?
I think the club scene is a bit strange, nicely. I stood down after about 8 years of being the club chairman.
Yeah.
For serious reasons that I wanted somebody younger to take on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the club's running without a chairman at the moment, and I'm doing the job without the title.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But going forward, I am passionate, and we did something for you on clubs, not hubs, not clubs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, from what I found in the south of England is it's my club and I'm not giving anything away and I'm not sharing.
Yeah.
And I still honestly believe that we should be sharing, but unfortunately people don't want to share.
Yeah, it's all about amateur radio, isn't it? That's the message that we've all got here. Yeah. So I think we're coming to the end, if that's all right. They told me a couple of minutes just now. So, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do for amateur radio as well. And I'll see you at all of the next coming events, I think.
Now, we're all used to seeing Ukraine in the news so much, and usually, obviously, for sad reasons in the last couple of years. And I've got two gentlemen with me now who've been involved with a project to help support Ukraine, but it's an interesting project. So, welcome to Richard Staples, G4HGI, and Lyndon Allen, M0TCF. Lynn, Richard, thanks very much for coming to tell us. Lynn, I think you started this off, so can you tell us how this project started?
Well, simply through social media, through Facebook. I'm a member of the Torbay Amateur Radio Society, and a message came floating across the ether from Ukraine, from a guy I never met, never even talked to, called Nick, who's called sign Uniform Kilo 6, Quebec Victor, asking for help. I looked into the message, found out where he was in the oblast of Zaporizhzhia, in Zaporizhzhia city itself, and that area had been occupied very heavily by the Russian forces, and then they had been pushed back by the Ukrainian forces. But as a result of that invasion and occupation, their radio station at the university had been completely destroyed, and Nick and his team were hoping to be able to get it up and running again, in order to basically carry on with what they were their hobby, and also more critically to help support the community in the wider Ukraine, passing emergency messages and all that sort of stuff, which was done very much early on. That's been all been expanded now very much. The amateur fraternity in Ukraine is heavily supporting the civilian agencies.
When you first had this call from help, when was that, just to put it into perspective?
That would have been very soon after the invasion. I say very soon after.
Last spring, last year.
May 2022 is when things were very fluid at that time. Despite the much vaunted, Soviet forces and their supposed reputation, the Ukrainians, mounted a fantastic defence of their homeland and managed to push them back quite significantly, out of certain areas. Again, Zaporizhzhia was one of those places, but they left it absolutely devastated.
I must ask you, what did you think though when you first got this cry for help from a radio station in Ukraine, out of the blue, as you said, completely?
Very much mixed emotions. I have my own very personal reasons for getting involved, but to be perfectly honest, I took a leap of faith. That's all we could do. That's all Richard and I really could do. But at the end of the day, if I can't help somebody, then what can I do? So I have to make that judgment, that choice. It rang true to me. The message, I don't know. I just basically had a gut feeling.
And you had others in your club who were willing to help you as well and support you?
Well, hang on a second, I'll just get on to that. I looked at this message, I thought to myself, I want to do something about this. And it was just really anger, as much as anything else, the sheer injustice of the situation and the way things had been done, by Russia to Ukraine and all the rest of it, and to the people that were suffering. I'm a former soldier, I wanted to go. I wanted to support. I can't. I'm too old. I'm disabled, and my wife would be really annoyed with me if I did anything like that. So I thought, what else can I do? How can I help? And this is my way of making a difference, of helping. So that Friday, I went down to TARS. I took a copy of Nick's message with me. I read it out to the club. I explained what I wanted to do, and said to the club, the gathered members, "What do you think?" And it was just like, wow, this whole enthusiasm rose.
It's fair to say, I mean, as I mentioned, we all see this on the news, but we all feel kind of powerless and helpless, really, to do something normally. So
this was our way of doing something. But what struck me the most is I was genuinely overwhelmed by the enthusiasm and support that I was given initially from TARS. And then as the message went out, I mean, obviously it went out onto our Facebook group. Richard is an expat member up in Wigan.
I was just going to say, we ought to involve Richard here now. So how did you get involved?
Right, well, we go to Devon a lot on holiday. I'm a member of the Torbay Club, although I'm also
your
a member
accent tells us that you're a little bit further north.
Bolton Wireless Club.
Right.
I'm a chairman of Bolton Wireless Club. But obviously, I live up north, but we go to Devon a lot on holiday. I've been a member of TARS for about 5 or 6 years. And what happened was, TARS have like a radio rally in August at Newton Abbot Racecourse. Now I happened to actually be there, and Lynn, bit of A4 paper on the wall, it said Ukraine relief donations.
Big flag, table, all the rest of it.
And I thought, right, I went away and I'm thinking, up in the northwest we have a huge concentration of radio hams, and we have something called NASA, which is the Northern Amateur Radio Societies Association, and there's kind of 50 odd clubs all in. So I thought, right, okay, there's a source of wonderful people prepared to donate equipment, and it just ballooned straight away. And the generosity of radio hams, I think you find, I like the term ham spirit, and that's where we've come together. The folks out in Ukraine have really understood what the UK ham spirit is, and that is to help to get.
So did you ask for specific bits of equipment or cables or whatever, or did you just wait for donations to come in?
It was open season.
Everything. Yeah. I mean, quote to quote, send us it, even if it's broken, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
You know, early on, I think Richard and I agreed quietly between us that we weren't going to send anything that was surplus to requirements in every way, shape or form. And we made that quite clear to people who were giving us donations. I've had new equipment given to me.
Yes.
I've had equipment that's valued up to £1,000 just handed to me.
And
you've started sending this?
Oh yes, Richard.
Oh wow!
Here we have a prop. Now, between us, we've sent probably over 100 of these.
Wow.
To the Ukraine.
It looks fairly, it's fairly heavy, but
it's
5 or 10 kilos or something like that.
This is a home devised packaging solution, which basically it's a little box, which usually they have tomatoes and cucumbers in, but they're perfect for this because they weigh 8 kilos, they're easy to handle, and like I say, we've done nearly 100 of these.
And what's in this one, or ones like this, typically, what have you got in there?
Coax plugs, cables, test equipment, power meters, power supplies. The generosity of the lads up from Torbay and up in the northwest.
Whole UK, it's not just...
Yeah.
You know,
and you said I think you said nearly 100 of these you've sent out now. That's amazing.
Yes.
So if now there'll be many people watching now who think I'd love to help.
Yeah.
Give it donate. We've got an email address for you, I think. Is it for you, Lynn? I think. And that is ukraineradio59@gmail.com. It's you, is it?
I monitor that all the time. So
okay, fine. We've got to put that at the bottom of the screen now so that people at home can see that. And you're still looking for donations? Anything in particular that you're looking for at the moment?
I would just say anything that you think's useful. We don't need, gentlemen, I'll be straight up and say we don't need any junk. Okay. If it's not repairable, if it's beyond use, then we don't need to send it over there. But everything else, absolutely brilliant.
But if someone's got a box of 20 or 30 PL259s or something like that,
just
Yeah,
a job.
okay, so it's not just the rigs and things.
We don't
all
need
sorts of
huge pieces.
Okay.
I mean, anything is very welcome.
Yeah.
We're very kind. We've had people donate HF radios. We know actually that Nick and some of his team have actually been on the air and taken part in some contests. How fantastic is that?
Yeah,
And
no, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, there's lots of, and obviously,
kit we've sent them, which is brilliant.
What we don't need. Sorry, there'll be people out there of a certain age like me who will remember things like AR-88s, which we've had offers of quite a few. You know, ex-government surplus, World War II kind of things. That they're so heavy, we can't send it.
So serviceable kit, or at least potentially serviceable.
Yeah.
And
The heaviest we've sent is probably something like an FT101, which is a HF transceiver, still valve, but it works heavy. But ideally, any donations, if they fit in there, we're on.
Good. All right, lovely. Can I say, Lynn, Richard, what a wonderful thing you've done. I didn't know that the hobby was involved in that way in Ukraine, and I'm sure lots of people at home didn't. So if you can help at all, drop them an email, and thank you very much indeed for coming to us today, and well done for what you've done.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Slava Ukraine.
Slava Ukraine.
Meeting lots of people, and it's really a pleasure to welcome Mark Haynes, M0DXR here. Mark, welcome to the live stream here at the convention. I know you're going to give us a talk to us in about an hour for the people here at the presentation, but you're here to talk primarily now about the WRTC coming here in 2026. So that's 3.5 years ago. But before we talk about anything else, in case you don't know what WRTC is, please explain to everybody at home what that is.
Thank you, David. Yeah, no, great to be here and appreciate you running the live stream. WRTC is the World Radio Sport Team Championship. It takes place usually every 4 years and is regarded as the Olympic Games of amateur radio contesting. So this is an event that changes host location every time, and we've never had it in the UK. This will be the 10th WRTC. It's where contesters qualify over a period of around about 18 months to 2 years by performing well in HF radio contests. They accumulate points, and if they perform well over that time, they qualify for WRTC, and they will come as a team leader to the event in 2026. And of course, this time it's in the UK, and we're delighted to be hosting it here in the southeast of England. And there will be 50 teams representing countries from all around the world, and this is not only a radio contest, but it's a big social opportunity for people to come together and enjoy everybody's company. So it'll be about a week long in July 2026.
Now that sounds a long way away, but then I've seen some of the things that you've got to do. If you look at one that's just happened this year, wasn't it? There just seems so much for you to do. You say 50 countries possibly going to be involved? 50 teams?
There'll be 50 teams. That will be made up of 42 qualifiers, so there'll be 2 operators per team, and then we have a number of teams dedicated for youth, so there'll be 4 youth teams, and then we have a couple of sponsored teams, we have wildcard teams, and we invite back the previous champions from, as you said, WRTC that was in Italy this year. It's actually WRTC 2022 that was delayed one year due to the COVID pandemic. And just to follow on from the first question, the objective of this is to actually get all the contesters together to compete on a level playing field, so whereby the antennas are all the same, the output power is the same, the general operating conditions are identical amongst all of the teams. So we get all of the higher qualifying operators together to compete on a level playing field to find out who really is the best, because in contesting there are so many variables, and we know that. From size of antennas to geographic location in the world to whether you're perched on a hilltop or in a valley, all of those variables are taken away as much as we possibly can for the event, so that we can actually find out who is the best, and they will be crowned champions.
I was going to say, this makes it very difficult, because you say a level playing field, but I mean, taking that fairly literally, level, that's one of the things. We all know that height gives most advantage to most people. You've got, I know it's southeast of England, so that's fairly flat. Is that one of the reasons why you chose the southeast of England, or are we off with that? Or are we bid for that?
That's right, David. Yeah, we've selected East Anglia, so Suffolk and Norfolk, as the general location of our operating sites. And all of these operating sites will be selected by a team headed up by Andy, G4PIQ. And his role is to find the sites, conduct some experiments to understand those which kind of stand out where perhaps we're a lot louder in parts of the world than other locations, or a lot weaker, and those sites will be eliminated. So we'll be using various tools like the reverse beacon network to give us signal readings from those sites so that we can actually be confident that the sites we've selected are level.
And just be clear, you want 50 sites, did you say? 50 sites?
Well, we'll actually need about 55 because we need 10% contingency so that if we do face any issues with sites, we've got some backups. So there'll be 55 locations identified. And we will conduct the experiments from all 55 locations.
That is incredible, because I mean that's really quite difficult to choose that so that nobody has an unfair advantage over anybody else. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's never going to be 100%. Every site is going to have its slight changes, but we're going to limit that as much as we possibly can. Just so that it is level as much as possible.
So these 50 teams then, I mean, how will they just be in a draw basically to where they go to keep that sort of fairly fair, or how does that work? How do you select who goes where?
So a day before the contest, we'll draw there are a few things that we'll have to draw. So the team leaders will draw their site, so they have no idea where they're going until a day before the contest. They will draw their referee, because every team has to have a referee.
That's an independent person.
Correct, and there's an application process that will be coming for that. And the third thing will be their call sign. So they'll have no idea what their call sign will be until just a day before the contest. Now they don't open that call sign envelope until about 5 minutes before the contest.
Oh wow.
So that gives them an opportunity to then program their voice keyers and their CW keyers ready to go at the start of the contest. So the idea is that there's no opportunity to share with the outside world a relationship between the call sign and the operators, which obviously, because to avoid cheerleading and that kind of thing from their host from whichever country they've come from. So we try and eliminate all possibilities.
I mean, you said to me, just so I could check on something, I think you said the day before. So I mean, what about like accommodation and all that sort of thing? It's going to last a week, isn't it, the competition?
There'll be an HQ venue where everybody will meet the week of the event.
Right.
Where we'll have meetings on the rules. There'll be trips out to Bletchley and down to Duxford and attractions like that, and an opportunity to socialise. But we'll cover all the rules. We'll have lots of meetings going on then. But the actual drawing of the site and the call sign and the referee will be the day before the contest. And at that point, once they've drawn that, they then have all their gear, because they bring their radios with them, and they go off to their sites, and that's their opportunity to then set up their station. So when they arrive at the site, what they will have is an operating tent. They'll have all the cables coming in, they'll have the tower will be up, and the Yagi will be on the tower. The 40 and 80 metre dipoles will be up, supported by the tower. They'll have a generator, and they'll have a site team that will look after them during the contest.
When you say site team, are they just there to support them then, or in what?
So
what way will they
there'll be a
support
site manager that will be in charge of that site, and there'll be a support team that will be there, so feeding them, giving them food and drink, offering any manpower to resolve any issues there may be, technical issues, fixing problems with antennas, rotators. This will all be checked beforehand, but that team, as they're going to be setting up and then doing the contest for 24 hours, they need some people to give them a little bit of a helping hand, and also offer them some security as well. Yep.
Yeah, so it's just 24 hours, their whole competition. All this work is for 24 hours?
It's a 24-hour contest. And,
wow. Can't believe it, and you're working on it now.
It's quite
3.5 years.
It's quite strange, actually, when you look at it on the plan on a page that we have. You've got all of these activities spanning 3 years, and then you've got this tiny little activity which is the contest itself.
Yeah.
But it's worth it, and it's a great opportunity for the United Kingdom, for the RSGB, getting that exposure, getting people together and socialising. The organising committee are really excited, and it's going to be a big challenge, a big project. We need a lot of volunteers. but we'll pull it off. We'll make it happen.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things I was going to ask you before we wrap up is what do you need, and how can people at home now get involved with this? So what sort of people are you looking for, and how do they apply?
We need a wide range of volunteers to help us. So anything from helping with IT, with the technical aspects, to drivers to actually help us take the operators and the referees to their sites, to building antennas, putting up towers, putting up tents, building the sites themselves ready for the operators, and then actually manning the sites during the event and helping us pack down at the end. From a sponsorship point of view, this is going to cost us somewhere in the region of £600,000 to run this project. So, and there are a number of ways that we can raise the funds for that. From corporate sponsors to radio clubs, organisations in our hobby, but also individual sponsors. We'll have tent sponsors. There's a whole load of opportunities for that, and we're already working on that. But the fundraising will span, the whole project.
So some of these are going to be presumably commercial sponsors, maybe people who make masks or radios or something like that. Because I think you did mention, didn't you, that people will bring their own radios. So how will you check out that they've not been doctored? I'm not suggesting anybody would, but with 50 teams, very competitive, that it says 100 watts on the box, but if it gives that more, how will you check that sort of thing? Is that the job of the adjudicator?
So when the operators arrive, all they will have in the shack is a table, 2 tables, 2 chairs, 3 cables coming in from the antennas. They will have a power meter provided. So this power meter will have 3 LEDs on it. Green, amber, red. Green is you're well within your 100 watts. Amber is you're hitting 100 watts, don't go any higher. And the red is you're over 100 watts, so back off the power. And that the referee will be keeping a close eye on that. So both stations will be fitted with those power meters. So the operators need to bring their transceivers, their logging computers, their filters, any triplexes that they may need, bearing in mind that they need to share 1 HF Yagi between 2 stations. So they need to provide all the hardware for their station. So there's a lot of hardware coming to the UK in 2026. That's what they will do, and they will build their stations. And a lot of these guys will already be thinking about how they can engineer their stations.
Well, it sounds wonderful. Mark, we haven't got much more time because we're going to go to another lecture, but you're going to give a presentation later on this afternoon as well. So good luck with that, and good luck with all of this. There's a website which people can go to have a look. I think we've probably put that on the screens already. If not, we'll make sure we do it later on. Mark Haynes, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, David.